14 up to 15 degrees by lunchtime today. In northern England, there's going to be more cloud throughout the morning, some sunny spells though, and again on the breezy side, temperatures double figures as we approach midday, just about 10 degrees. Let's head to Scotland. Bands of showers are going to move northwards across the west of the country. It should be dry elsewhere though, with some sunny spells. Temperatures in Edinburgh around 11 degrees Celsius today. Let's have a quick look at Belfast. And gusty winds across Northern Ireland this morning with a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers, which could be on the heavy side. Temperatures widely in double figures. So generally today, bands of showers that will continue to move northwards throughout the rest of the day, driest in the southeast. That is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. This is To The Point on GBNews for me, Patrick Christys, and Mercy Muroki on your TV, radio and online. We've got loads for you today. Boris's visit to Ukraine being at the top of the agenda. We've got a Ukrainian MP on that. Where do you stand on it, though?
Yes, and make sure you get in touch with your views. As usual, gbviews at gbnews.uk. We'll try and get to as many as we can, as always. But first, here's the headlines.
A very good morning. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date on GB News. Now, the Austrian Chancellor is going to push for a ceasefire in Ukraine when he meets the Russian president in Moscow later. It's going to be the first time an EU leader has had a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin since the war began. Ukraine is bracing for a new attack in the east, with President Zelensky warning Russia is readying tens of thousands of troops for the next offensive. New video has been released showing the devastated theatre in Mariupol. Jamil Jaffer, who served in the White House as Associate Counsel to the President, warned there'll be many more casualties.
The situation we're seeing on the ground is terrible. Over 10 million people displaced, 6.5 million within Ukraine itself, thousands of civilians dead, continuously being targeted by the Russians, hospitals, schools, and the like being targeted by the Russians. The situation is getting worse by the minute, and Putin has very little incentive to negotiate. While he is focused on the eastern part now, the fact of the matter is that he will try to starve the Ukrainians out.
The Chancellor has referred himself to the Prime Minister's independent advisor on ministers' interests. Well, it's after it emerged that Rishi Sunak held a US green card while in office and that his wife holds non-dom status. He says he followed the rules and hopes the review will provide further clarity. Well, Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reed told us at GB News the Chancellor's failure to declare his wife's non-dom status is just one of many concerns.
The Finance Act that's just gone through Parliament, there are changes to the rules that benefit wealthy non-doms. Now, under the Ministerial Code, ministers are supposed to declare that kind of thing so that they can recuse themselves and not take part in decisions that will affect their own household income. There are a whole list of concerns like that about Rishi Sunak's behaviour, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
From today, millions of people in the UK will see a rise in their state pensions, but that rise won't be enough to match the growing cost of living. Pensions and universal credit benefits have been increased by 3.1%, but the Office for Budget Responsibility says inflation could hit a 40-year high of 8.7% later this year. Pensions analyst Helen Morrissey told GB News the financial boost is not enough.
With inflation already at 6.2% and looking to go higher over the next few months, it's a drop in the ocean when they're battling against soaring bills and food costs. Heating costs are on the rise as well, and they're going to really struggle to make ends meet, particularly those people who are very, very dependent on the state pension.
Britain's economy almost stalled in February, with growth slowing more than expected. The Office for National Statistics says gross domestic product increased just 0.1% compared to a rise of 0.8% in January. Well, the data comes as the cost of living crisis starts to take hold. A record 21.5 million journeys are going to be made by car this coming Easter weekend. The RAC is warning drivers the getaway between Good Friday and Easter Monday will be the busiest on the UK's roads in at least 8 years. Heathrow Airport recorded its busiest month in March since the pandemic started, with over 4 million passengers passing through. In France, Emmanuel Macron is going to face Marine Le Pen in the second round of the French presidential election at the end of the month. The incumbent president and the far-right rival came out on top in Sunday's first-round vote, and that sets up a repeat of the 2017 runoff. A number of polls are predicting a close fight between the two, but predict Macron will win with a tight margin. All major candidates in the election, now bar one, have called for tactical voting against Le Pen. Nearly half of England's teachers plan to quit within the next 5 years. It's a new poll published by the National Education Union. They found 52% of teachers blame an unmanageable workload for wanting to leave the profession. In the survey of 2,000 teachers, they also cited pay and accountability as reasons to consider quitting. The Queen has revealed she was left very tired and exhausted during her bout of coronavirus in February. The monarch made a video call to Royal London Hospital this week, sympathising with a former COVID patient who lost his brother and father to the infection. The Queen tested positive in February, and despite suffering what Buckingham Palace called mild cold-like symptoms, she was determined to carry out what duties she could.
I'm glad that you're getting better, and it does leave one very tired and exhausted, doesn't it, this horrible pandemic.
You're up to date on GB News. I'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's head back to the point.
Good morning, this is To The Point on GB News with me, Mercy Muroki, and Patrick Christys. We're on your TV, radio and online, and we've got a great show lined up for you today to kickstart your day. So here's what's on the menu.
Absolutely, kickstart your week. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that his country is bracing itself for a hard battle in the east, with Russian forces continuing to amass there. Officials have told civilians to flee the area immediately, and both the UK and the US have pledged more military support. We'll cross live to Ukraine with an MP on this very shortly. Plus, obviously, we're having a chat about Boris's visit. Where do you stand on that?
Yes, and the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has written to the Prime Minister asking for an investigation into his financial affairs after days of damaging leaks about his family's tax status. This comes, of course, just days after the national insurance rose for all of us by 1.25%.
Yes, indeed. You love to see it when they report themselves, don't you? But are you planning on getting away for Easter? Well, disruption is expected on the country's road networks, with the RAC encouraging early mornings or late night trips. This comes just a week after staff shortages caused chaos at airports and train stations. We'll keep you updated on how this might impact you.
Yeah, well, it's not Extinction Rebellion for once, is it?
No, that's true.
We have all of that coming up and much more as well across the programme. And get in touch with your views. gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email. But first, Patrick gives his views on Prime Minister Boris Johnson visiting Ukraine.
Boris Johnson went to a war zone while Keir Starmer struggles to define what a woman is. I'm not sure he actually knows what a man is either. Boris showed true leadership, courage and nous on the international stage by going on a walk around with Zelensky in Kiev. He pledged a further £100 million worth of UK military assistance, vows to send Ukraine 120 armoured vehicles and new anti-ship missile systems. On top of that, Johnson also confirmed further economic support, guaranteeing an additional £385 million in World Bank lending to Ukraine, taking the total UK loan guarantees to £770 million. That's proper action. There have been some absolutely terrible takes on this. They're the usual media types. Oh, it's just a PR stunt. Well, yes, it is a bit of a PR stunt, both at home and abroad. It's a PR stunt for us and Ukraine, but one with real purpose, to bolster Ukrainian spirits, bolster Ukrainian defences and bolster Britain's standing on the world stage. So it's a good thing. What Boris Johnson's trip to Ukraine has highlighted even further is just how many people hate Britain. It doesn't matter what we do or what our leaders do, they just hate Britain. Zelensky issues a quote that didn't even mention Boris, OK? He said, the other democratic countries of the West should follow the example of the United Kingdom. Cue mass Remainer hysteria. One person on Twitter said, I believe we can show this now, he praises every country and leader who helps him, but of course Britain needs to make this even into a competition. You guys are obsessed with world-leading, world-beating, best in the world, blah, blah, blah. You know what? It's more like wah, 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 isn't it, from the pro-Remain brigade? I wonder what her Twitter bio looks like. Should we take a look? Let's have a look at it. Yeah, there we go, I think. OK. EU citizen stranded on a tiny rock. Classic. You couldn't make it up, could you? Well, you're not stranded, love. I mean, people manage to leave the country every single day, don't they? And then, of course, there's this hot take. Check this one out. So, Zelensky doesn't really like Johnson much, but he's smart enough to flatter him in order to keep the military hardware flowing into Ukraine. Well, that tweet came from a man called Pete Josephs, whose Twitter bio I believe we can see now. There we are. Retired computer programmer, proudly woke, love the EU. I mean, you just couldn't make it up. Gosh, it's incredible, isn't it, that a retired computer engineer would have a direct line to the president of the Ukraine. You know, forget the political correspondence. Pete, the laptop fixer's got the inside scoop. We can all go home. But how has their beloved EU behaved during this crisis? Pretty ineffectively. Their approach has focused strongly on financial sanctions and the humanitarian crisis. They set up an investigation team to look into war crimes. OK, fine, but nothing really to actually prevent those war crimes taking place or stop the humanitarian crisis, is there? And in reality, it's their political idiocy, actually, that's indirectly caused this crisis. Some of their member states, Germany's reliance on Russian gas, for example, they sent 5,000 helmets to Ukraine. That's big of them. My point here is that it was left up to the EU, right? Ukraine would just fall to Russia, and then Brussels would attempt to help those fleeing that war. What the UK is actually doing, or what Boris is doing, is actively trying to prevent Ukraine falling to Russia, actively trying to mitigate as much of that humanitarian crisis as possible, actively trying to prevent those war crimes. And there's a big difference there. I've been very critical of Boris at times. I don't think he's necessarily been the best leader or the best one that we could have hoped for, but the sight of him being called over by a Ukrainian man in the street who thanked him for his response made me feel proud to be British. And it's upsetting that so many people seem to devote their time to finding ways just to feel ashamed. I actually feel very sorry for them. Yeah, some terrible takes, I felt, on that.
Yeah, I thought that was a terrible take as well.
Stop it, you. It's only Monday.
You said a lot there. I mean, all I can say is I saw those images of Boris Johnson's that you refer to. If you haven't seen them, I'd encourage viewers and listeners to look them up, of Boris Johnson walking through the streets of Kiev, and a man who was obviously one of the citizens there, probably living in that house. he walks up to Boris Johnson, or Boris walks up to him, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, walks up to him and he shakes his hand and they have a bit of a conversation and he thanks the Prime Minister for his support. And it was such an authentic moment for me. I mean, we're so used to seeing things that are so obviously staged, which are just blatant PR. But actually, I think this was one of the most authentic and genuine moments I've personally seen of the Prime Minister. And he does look statesman-like here, and he does look like a leader, and that's exactly what we want to see from Boris Johnson. So I couldn't agree more with you on that one.
Absolutely, 100%. Just a quick view, GBViews, GBNews.uk. Lou's been in touch. Yeah, I fully support Boris' visit to Kiev. It was a physical show of support. Well, I tell you what, someone else that I'd quite like to show a physical display of support for is our next guest, because turning over the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, as I said, obviously, the PM visited Kiev and the footage has been all over social media, hasn't it? I'm sure we've all seen it. He was wandering these deserted streets of the capital. But while in Ukraine, Boris received this warm welcome, didn't he? And after he pledged a load of missiles, etc., etc., etc. And today, the Austrian Chancellor, Karl Nehammer, will meet with President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. So it'll be the first time an EU leader has met face-to-face with Vladimir Putin since the war began on the 24th of February.
Yes, well, one resident who has fought for his city, Alexei Goncharenko, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, joins us now to discuss this. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, firstly, let's just start off with, how are you doing? Obviously, it's, I think, day 44 or something. I think I said that last week, of this war now. How are you?
Yeah, we are on, I think, day 46 already. And yeah, it's tough. It's war. We're losing people every day. But the mood is very high because we won the battle at Kiev. Russian troops should retreat and even run away some places. Now I just returned from Kramatorsk, which is the capital of Ukraine-controlled part of Donbass, where this awful attack was on Friday, when Russians just hit the railway station where people were waiting for evacuation and for the trains, and 57 people were killed with this missile attack with the cassette bombs inside, which is, these cassette bombs, by the way, are forbidden for use even against military targets and military people, but to use it against civilians, it's so awful. This is a absolutely pure war crime. And it happened in Kramatorsk. I've been on the place yesterday. I saw everything by my own eyes, the results. So it's tough, but we are feeling that we are winning. And I've heard a bit of your discussion before, and I want to say a great thank you to the United Kingdom and your leadership, and to Prime Minister, because really today the UK shows leadership in free world. That is the most helping Ukraine country. And to help Ukraine today, it is to help and it is to fight for our common values, for human dignity, for human rights, for democracy, for rule of law, for the fact that borders cannot be changed by force, against dictatorships. So I really appreciate this leadership, and not me, from the whole nation. We are very thankful for the UK, not only for your practical support, which is also huge, but for this symbolic support, for this visit of Boris Johnson, for this walking on the streets of Kiev when Putin is sitting somewhere in bunker and not getting out of there, being in Moscow or somewhere, I don't know, in Ural or Siberia. But your Prime Minister is walking on the streets of Ukrainian capital, from which, I just want to remind you, many embassies left. By the way, I'm waiting for British embassy to return, because now it is not operating in Kiev, and that is also a problem today for people, even including visa, receiving of visas and so on. So I hope that after Prime Minister walked on the streets of Kiev, British embassy will also come back and start operating.
Yeah, exactly. And just tell us a bit about your feelings towards maybe the European Union or some other countries there, because a lot of people in this country saw what Boris Johnson did, and because they don't like Boris Johnson, OK, they said, oh, it's all just a stunt. It was all just a game. But actually, how do you compare the UK's response and Boris's response to that of other European nations?
I'm not inside your internal agenda, so I'm not interfering in any way. But to say from our side, Boris Johnson is the example of leader, like we see it from Ukraine on the international stage and on the international level. I don't know many about what's going on inside, but from outside, he looks like a leader. I think it's important to show leadership. Unfortunately, looking at European Union, I don't see real leaders there. Level of, I don't know, Charles de Gaulle or other well-known figures. No, I don't see that, unfortunately. And the only thing I think why it is the European countries are also supporting Ukraine because of the people of European countries, because certainly societies of European countries are absolutely on our side and are supporting Ukraine enormously. Millions of our refugees are taken care of by families, not even by governments, but by families of European people. And that is so important and so touching us. And this pressure from the societies makes political leaders in Europe react too. But certainly it is hard to compare German reaction when Ukraine asked Germany to sell us, once again, to sell us armored vehicles Marders. Germany refused and now is going to pay money for utilizing them because they are old ones. Just once again, we asked to sell us these Marders, and instead of this, they're going to pay money to utilize them. I can't accept it. I can't understand this. So certainly it is a great difference between the reaction of the UK government and, for example, German government. And I hope that other governments will watch at Boris Johnson example, by Polish example, by the way, by Lithuanian, Latvia, Estonia governments, and also support Ukraine both physically, practically, with weapons, sanctions against Russia, and also politically. That is so important for us.
And very finally, one day, of course, this war will come to an end. And all over social media, I've been seeing so many horrific images, so many horrific videos, so many awful stories, which I can't even repeat at this time of the morning. And so many people are calling now for the Russians, Vladimir Putin and others, to be prosecuted for war crimes, for those alleged war crimes. Do you have faith that one day that justice will be served?
Yes, I believe in this. Because I believe in rule of law, I believe in democracy, I believe in free world. And that means that those who are responsible for such awful crimes would pay for this. And you're showing, by the way, it's a school in Kramatorsk, I think. I've been there yesterday at this school, just bombed, just destroyed. And yes, all of these are war crimes. And if people who are committed such war crimes will not be responsible, will not pay for this, that will be extremely bad message to the whole world.
Indeed. And Alexei, thank you so much, as always. Keep up the good work. You know, we really, really appreciate you, all the work that you're doing for us here as well, coming on and keeping us informed. And good luck to you and your family. Alexei Goncharenko there, a member of Ukrainian Parliament and an absolute legend, let's be honest with you. Well, look, after the break, this weekend is the Easter getaway, and the RAC has said that it could be the busiest on the UK's records for the last 8 years, combined with staff shortages and railways. What will this mean for holidaymakers? Also, we've got an update on the French election, haven't we? With a very, very special guest. I think you know him quite
Emmanuel
well.
Macron.
Yes, no. You've put a ban on it. Put a ban on Macron.
Not
anyway,
Macron,
there we go. But first, it's the weather.
Well, looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking mostly dry in the east, but a few showers in the west. Scattered showers will continue to move across southwest England through this morning, some on the heavy side. However, there will be plenty of sunshine away from these. On the breezy side across southeast England and the London area this morning, it will remain dry here with plenty of hazy sunshine. Over to Wales, and here a band of showery rain will push northwards on the windy side with temperatures in double figures, however. And off to the Midlands, we'll see a mainly dry morning with plenty of hazy sunshine, breezy but on the mild side with temperatures reaching around 13 by lunchtime. Northern England will see increasing amounts of cloud through the morning, but with some sunny spells on the breezy side, with temperatures reaching double figures as well here as we approach midday. And across Scotland, bands of showers will move northwards across the west of the country. Dry elsewhere with sunny spells. Temperatures in Edinburgh will reach around 11 Celsius. Gusty winds across Northern Ireland this morning with a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers, which could be on the heavy side. Temperatures widely in double figures. Bands of showers will continue to move northwards through the rest of the day. Driest in the southeast, and that's your weather for the day.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children, and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Good morning, it's just gone 10:24 and this is To The Point with me, Mercy Muroki, and Patrick Christys on your TV, radio and online this morning.
Yeah, well, holidaymakers hoping for a relaxing, peaceful Easter break, they face transport chaos instead, apparently, as airports and train delays are expected to continue throughout the week. Those looking to drive instead will fare no better, as the forthcoming Easter holiday time will see roads at their busiest and most congested in at least 8 years, according to the RAC.
Yes, well, here to tell us more is our Northwest of England reporter, Bradley Harris. Good morning, Bradley. We said there that it's expected to be the busiest in 8 years. Why is that?
Yeah, well, there are many reasons why there is an expectation for roads to be really busy over the Easter bank holiday. Of course, we've had a couple of years where people haven't been able to see family or friends in the normal way. So many people in the UK will be desperate to see loved ones this bank holiday weekend. Of course, there's also a lot of disruption going on with public transport. Network Rail are doing maintenance on many lines, including the West Coast Main Line, which will be closed between London Euston and Milton Keynes between Good Friday and Easter Monday. That's because of upgrades to the existing line and HS2 work. Of course, I've been reporting on several airline disruptions because of staff shortages due to COVID sickness. It's not just with airlines such as British Airways and EasyJet that are seeing problems, but also at the airports. Manchester Airport, we've seen in recent weeks people waiting up to 2 hours to board flights to try and get away. At the moment, those wait times are looking at around 90 minutes, so still a bit of a delay. So people are opting to take the car instead. Of course, we've also got a big game on this week. Liverpool and Manchester City meet in the FA FA Cup semi-final match at Wembley on Saturday, so that's going to cause some problems around those areas. A couple of other likely congested hotspots I'm going to give you for this Easter weekend, though. It's where I'm standing now, the M6 North between Junction 26, that's the Oral interchange in Wigan. Now, and Junction 36, that's the Lake District. That's one particular hotspot you need to be aware of, particularly on Good Friday. The M25 clockwise from Junction 8, that's Reigate Hill interchange in Surrey, to Junction 16 at Denham interchange in Buckinghamshire. That's another hotspot, as well as the A303 near Stonehenge in Wiltshire. Those are the likely hotspots that are going to get really congested over the bank holiday weekend, so stay clear of those. The RAC is saying if you really want to travel without the least amount of disruption, head out before 9 a.m. or travel later after 7:30 p.m. As you say, you know, this is an estimated 21.5 million people deciding to travel by car this bank holiday weekend. It's the most they've ever seen since the RAC began tracking motorists' Easter plans in 2014. So I think the message is clear. Just check before you travel.
Good stuff, Bradley. Thank you very much. Bradley Harris there informing you of some traffic that may or may not happen at the weekend. Hopefully we can all get home safe if you are travelling back and you've got big Easter plans.
Yeah, I forget. My daughter has an extra week at her school of Easter holidays, annoyingly. Right. So
classic.
I forgot that people's Easter... Wait, did half-term start? I don't know why I'm asking you.
You're the parent here. You're the one with the kid at school. I've got no idea when half-term starts.
Yeah, to be fair...
Did you drop your kid off at school earlier? It's just empty. So, gosh, it's quiet today, isn't it? No one's here.
I didn't, but I am very bad at keeping on top of the dates. They do happen to pop up on me every time.
You're going to end up getting a phone call halfway through the show, and it's like, sorry, I've got to go. I've got to pick her up. Anyway, right, loads of comments coming in. Let's go to views, gbviews at gbnews.uk. By the way, very shortly, we're going to have the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Nigel Farage will be joining us on the show because we're going to be talking about the latest in the French elections. Where do you stand on that? Have a think, people, about who you'd vote for over there. Would you vote at all? OK, Marine Le Pen, she's a bit fruity to say the least, isn't she, I think? But Emmanuel Macron, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan, so who would you actually vote for?
Never noticed.
No. But anyway, right, those people getting in touch about what we were talking about earlier about Boris Johnson's trip to Ukraine. A lot of people saying that there's a lot of anti-British comments out there, is what I was saying, demonstrating that some people revel in their never having a good word for this country. And it's true. That's from Jacqueline, by the way. Thank you.
It's a virtue signalling thing, isn't it? Because I think when people criticise the West or criticise Britain, they kind of pat themselves on the back. They feel like they're being progressive and they're part of the group of people, mainly people on the left, who talk about colonialism and slavery, and that's all they ever associate with Britain. So when other people join in, they feel kind of smug about it, I guess. But Mike here says, I was genuinely stunned when I saw the news and Boris walking around with the president of Ukraine on Saturday. Then I felt a magnificent pride of being English and having a prime minister who actually has the balls to do this, unlike the rest of the backstabbing politicians we have in our great country.
Gosh, well, I'll tell you what, that's strong stuff, but you like to see it. You like to see it. Boris Bassing seems to be all some people in this country want to do, no matter what he does. A certain elements, including the usual media outlets, will do their best to demean his efforts. That's from David. Yeah, it's a tricky one, really. From my personal perspective, whenever I say anything negative about Boris, which at times you will do because he's a Prime Minister, well, I do get a lot of Boris bashing, you just like all the rest, this, that and the other. But, you know, you've got to give credit where credit's due, and sometimes you have to criticise the Prime Minister.
Yeah, you know? I thanked Boris Johnson, didn't I, last week? In one of my monologues for actually standing up and saying that biological men shouldn't be allowed to compete in women's sports and that women should have their own spaces, and praising him again this week for that show of strength and courage and leadership. But Martin does not agree. Martin says, Boris walking around Kiev, this is clearly a setup. One man standing alone in the street shaking in his hand. Come on, Patrick, wake up. Yeah, he's not convinced that... Of course it was a bit of a PR thing.
Well, it was. By definition, it's a PR. Anything a politician does is a PR thing. Of course it is. I think you may be alluding to the fact, correct me if I'm wrong here, Martin, maybe you're saying that actually, you know, Zelensky and Ukraine had conveniently placed a man on the street there to say, look, potentially, we'll never know. But to me, it didn't look quite genuine.
But it looked like a genuine... The man still seemed genuine and authentic in thanking...
I think they would have got someone who was maybe a bit more over the top, you know, like one of those, like... Those,
like throwing themselves...
Yeah, some of those, like, North Korean people who, like, you know, whenever, like, they see Kim Jong-un and they're, like, throwing themselves in front of him, they're crying, you know. It wasn't quite like that, was it? It was a bloke outside a corner shop who looked a bit confused to see Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
But anyway, there we go.
Well, anyway, after the break, Marine Le Pen and Emmanuel Macron have topped the first round vote for the next French president. So what would their election actually mean? Well, we'll be live with Nigel Farage after this morning's news.
Good morning, it's 10:32. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date on GB News. The Austrian Chancellor is going to push for a ceasefire in Ukraine when he meets the Russian president in Moscow later. It's going to be the first time an EU leader has had a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin since the war began. Ukraine's bracing for a new attack in the east, with President Zelensky warning Russia is readying tens of thousands of troops for the next offensive. New videos also emerged showing the extent of damage at the National Theatre in Mariupol, which was destroyed during an airstrike, killing at least 300 people. The UK Chancellor has referred himself to the Prime Minister's independent advisor on ministers' interests. Well, it emerged that Rishi Sunak held a US green card while in office and that his wife holds non-domicile status. He says he followed the rules and hopes the review will provide further clarity. From today, millions of people in the UK will see a rise in their state pensions, but it won't be enough to match the growing cost of living. Pensions and universal credit benefits have increased by 3.1%, but the Office for Budget Responsibility says inflation could hit a 40-year high of 8.7% later this year. A record number of car journeys is expected this weekend. The RAC anticipate 21.5 million trips over the Easter break. Thousands of passengers will also be travelling by rail and air. The latest figures show Heathrow recorded its busiest month since the pandemic started, with more than 4 million passengers passing through the airport last month. The Queen has revealed she was left very tired and exhausted during her bout of coronavirus in February. The monarch made a video call to Royal London Hospital this week, sympathising with a former COVID patient who lost both his brother and his father to the illness. You're up to date. We're on your TV, online and DAB+ radio. Shortly, we'll be back to the point.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Morning all, it's 10:35. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys and Mercy Muroki on GB News Live, as ever on your TV, online and radio.
Yes, now the judge is summing up in the murder trial of 26-year-old Ali Harbi Ali, accused of killing the Tory MP Sir David Amess last October.
Well, our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, is with us now. Thank you very much, Mark, outside the Old Bailey live for us today. What can you tell us, please?
Well, things moving a bit faster than we had initially thought. We thought that the trial could go into tomorrow before we see the jury heading out, but it now looks like the jury could be heading out as soon as lunchtime today. We are at the stage now where the judge has begun summing up. Now, we were told that the prosecution had a closing statement to read out, a short one. Now, we don't know, given that the judge has begun summing up, which normally comes last in the process here, whether he will actually break and allow the prosecution to give their closing argument, or whether they just skipped right to the end. Either way, it's moving fairly quickly. With regard to what the judge has been saying to the jury, he's obviously reinforcing to them that they need to decide this case on the evidence that has been put before them. Ali Harbi Ali faces 2 counts, 1 count of murdering Sir David Amess on the 15th of October last year, as he held that regular constituency surgery at this Baptist church in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex, also charged with preparing acts of terrorism, in other words, a terrorist plot. Now, he gave evidence himself in the middle of last week. 80 minutes he was in the witness box giving his evidence, and during that process he admitted to stabbing Sir David Amess to death. He said that he did not regret that action, that he would do it again, and that the reason he had done it was to protect Muslims. It was, he said, because of Sir David Amess's voting rights on issues such as the bombing of Syria. In his evidence, he said, "I decided to do it because I felt that if I could kill someone who made decisions to kill Muslims, it could prevent further harm to those Muslims." He, Sir David, voted previously in Parliament, not just him. "I decided if I couldn't make hijrah, in other words, travel to Syria to join up with Islamic State, if I couldn't help the Muslims in Syria, I would do something here." And so the prosecution alleged that this young man, 26-year-old, decided to embark on a plot to kill an MP, and this was a plot some years in its endeavour in trying to scope out potential targets. There was not just Sir David Amess that he was looking at, also Michael Gove, the Cabinet Secretary, and the Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab were in his sights for a time, as was the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer. In the end, he settled on Sir David Amess, a very soft target according to the prosecution, an MP, very popular in his home constituency, who always made himself available for his constituents, and it was that avenue that this young man exploited, according to the prosecution, to get down to Leigh-on-Sea to murder this MP. As I say, we're expecting that the jury could be sent out as early as lunchtime today.
Good stuff, Mark. Thank you very much. Mark White there, of course, our Home and Security Editor. But bringing the latest on the David Amess trial, the murder trial there. Right, we're going to keep it moving now, aren't we? And we're going to go over to France.
Yes, well, the French President, Emmanuel Macron, won the first round of the French presidential elections yesterday alongside rival Marine Le Pen. Le Pen of the National Rally, formerly the National Front, has gained ground, focusing on domestic concerns like the cost of living, while Macron's eyes have been turned to the east as the conflict in Ukraine unfolds.
Right, well, if Macron wins on April 24th, he'll be the first French president to win re-election in 20 years. But who better to talk about this? And the one and only Nigel Farage, a man who's had his fingers plugged into EU politics and European politics for many, many years, a former leader of UKIP, and some would say Mr Brexit as well. And of course, I believe viewers of this particular parish will be acutely aware of exactly who Nigel Farage is. Nigel, what do you make of these results?
Strong results for Le Pen, strong results also for Mélenchon, who got a lot more votes than anybody thought at 20%. Look, France is in a very unhappy place. It reminds me of the UK back in the 1970s. People aren't happy, people are angry. There is a feeling that Paris has become pretty much a foreign country, and that's an even greater split than we had in our country with the Brexit vote back in 2016. So I think in many ways, I have to say, it's all to play for, but it will all depend on one thing. On the 20th of this month, there will be a head-to-head debate. That will decide who wins this French presidential election. If Marine Le Pen can convince enough people that a major change of direction is needed and that she's not scary in the way that her father was, if she can do that, she can win. Back in 2017, she had a calamitous debate. Macron completely outthought her, completely outfoxed her. Has she changed? Has she improved? Everything will hinge on that.
Indeed. What about the tactical voting element of this, no, Nigel? Lots of other parties kind of group together and say, look, hey, OK, we just want to do everything to keep Le Pen out, and they urge their own supporters to vote for Macron, don't they? Could she fall victim to that as well, do you think?
Well, Mélenchon was very clear, wasn't he, to his fifth of the vote, do not vote for Marine Le Pen. But I'm not sure the left are quite as scared of Marine Le Pen as perhaps they were 5 years ago, or certainly in the days when her father ran the predecessor, the Front National. I mean, when you think about it, this vote will be about the European Union as much as it's about French culture. Macron is a true believer in the European dream. He loves it. He wants the United States of Europe. Marine is very Eurosceptic, not a withdrawalist anymore, but very Eurosceptic. And a lot of those Mélenchon voters are Eurosceptic themselves.
Well, this is it. Yeah, this is it. Sorry, that's just on that point now, but that's a really crucial point I want to dig down deep on, because if I was Marine Le Pen, I think I'd be bracketing this as almost like an EU referendum, which Macron isn't going to give them. And so actually that could be a real way in for it, couldn't it?
I couldn't agree more. It's very interesting watching the broadcast media across the rest of UK channels today. There's almost no mention of the European Union whatsoever. They don't understand it. But I tell you what, when I go around France, I spent a lot of time there, of course, going back and forth to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, I find the French people pretty much as Eurosceptic as the Brits were in the run-up to 2016. So it's going to be really interesting. And one more reason to understand why the last few days matters so much. France, unlike the UK, unlike America now, has not been corrupted by mass early postal voting. If you want to vote in France, you've pretty much got to turn up on Sunday the 24th. And that is why that debate on the 20th will matter so much. Where you have systems where large numbers have voted 2-3 weeks before an election, polling day takes on less significance. So it's all on that debate.
And just very finally, one of the reasons many people in this country might not look so kindly on France is because of the Channel migration crisis. We know that last year, the number of illegal migrants crossing the Channel were over 3 times what it was the previous year. I mean, do you have any hope that a change of leader might actually provide the impetus needed to get on top of this issue?
Well, Macron, of course, is clearly anti-British, Le Pen, well, is Le Pen going to be more pro-British and more pro-America? That remains to be seen. And that's a question she must be asked over the next few weeks. When it comes to the Channel, it's easy for us to blame the French, Actually, we should look to ourselves. This is seen as Treasure Island by the migrants that are crossing the continent. They know there is zero chance of deportation. So I think, it's a question worth asking, but perhaps we should look more to ourselves.
Good stuff, Nigel. As ever, thank you very much. Nigel Farage there, of course, our very own, as it were. Thank you for all of that. Now, moving on. So the Queen has paid tribute to key NHS workers over Zoom and also heard about their experiences of working on the front line during the pandemic. She's talked about her own experiences of having COVID. I believe we can take a quick listen, actually.
Better now.
I'm getting there. I'm recovering. I'm much better. I mean, I've recently left the wheelchair, so I'm walking about now.
I'm glad that you're getting better, and it does leave one very tired and exhausted, doesn't it? This horrible pandemic. It's been very nice to be able to join you and also to hear what happened and how well it has been achieved. Thank you very much indeed, all of you.
Oh, she's so gorgeous, isn't she? She's so beautiful. As you may have heard there, the Queen did admit she had been left feeling very tired and exhausted as a result of having COVID. Despite recovering, her admission has left some concern for her health after she needed hospital care last autumn. And Her Majesty also missed the Commonwealth Day celebrations last month and pulled out of this week's Maundy service in Windsor.
Well, absolutely. Well, look, obviously Prince Charles will take her place this time. But given the context, right, of all of this stuff, given the fact that the Queen has just come out and said she's left tired and fatigued, she's got mobility issues, she's been struggling, as we all know. Well, it's not struggling. It's age, isn't it? It's age. It's old age.
96,
it will catch up.
Isn't she?
It will
She's
catch
doing a
up
great
to us
job.
all, right? At some point. Well, I was staggered, I tell you, staggered that Prince Harry is still sticking his oar in. Apparently, he's really going to go after Camilla in his tell-all book that I'm sure we will all be buying. And indeed, reading cover to cover. But our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, joins us now. Your first stint on this show as the royal reporter. Many congratulations, thoroughly deserved, I must say.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with Harry. We'll talk a bit about the Queen's health later on. But this tell-all book, apparently he just does not like Camilla. Is that right?
Well, we don't know exactly what is going to be in it. So we're expecting this autobiography at some point in the autumn. And the problem for the palace is we don't know what's going to be in it. And if you take the Oprah interview that they did back in 2021, where Meghan accused an unnamed member of the royal family of racism, and Harry effectively accused the royal family of casting him out financially and cutting him off financially, both of which the palace denied, it wouldn't surprise me if there were a few allegations in this new book. But, you know, Camilla... You said that Harry is going to go after Camilla. The Queen has expressed publicly her wish for Camilla to become Queen Consort when the time comes for Charles to become king. And they are becoming more popular in the polls. So I'm not sure how the British public are going to take this new book if indeed it does go after Charles and Camilla.
Yeah, and how, you know, I have to ask, why is he doing this, basically? Because, I mean, I know it it will make him a lot of money, but he doesn't need to make... He's not poor, is he? No. Why is he doing this? He knows it's just going to cause further risk, further damage. I mean, it just seems like such an unnecessary thing to do. And this year, of all years, when we're celebrating, you know, the Queen's Jubilee.
It does seem quite poor timing, doesn't it? But Harry is no longer a working member of the royal family, so he does need to get financial income from somewhere. They have, both Harry and Meghan have big deals with Netflix and Spotify, but this book is, I suppose, just an extra financial thing for him. But equally, he hasn't really... Well, I suppose he has spoken about the Oprah interview publicly about, you know, stuff that's happened behind the scenes, which we wouldn't necessarily know. But a book's going to be in a lot more detail, isn't it? And I think it's his chance to perhaps maybe vent his anger or frustrations he's had to remain quiet over when he was a working member of the royal family. But we don't know. We wouldn't know what's in Harry's
We don't
mind.
know. But I think, look, there's a moral point here, of course, or rather a lack of any moral points, isn't there? Where the Queen is, you know, obviously of a certain age and has been struggling with various different things recently. And it's just yet another way of Harry kind of heaping confusion, potential misery, discomfort, really, on our dear Queen. I thought missing Prince Philip's memorial, but obviously jetting off to the Netherlands, and they say they're safer over there, that's fine. It's not looking particularly good, is it? Do you know how the royal family are feeling? Is there any indication whatsoever how the royal family are feeling towards Prince Harry? Do you think there's anger? We've heard William's got a bit of a temper on him, haven't we?
We have heard he's got a bit of a temper. I mean, nothing official, of course. They never do. But I think the royal family are very much hoping that he might perhaps make an appearance at the Platinum Jubilee in June. It's as well as, you know, a big celebration for Her Majesty, 70 years on the throne. I think she would want her whole family to be there. And in fact, Prince Harry's spokesperson did tell me when he said that he wasn't going to be attending Prince Philip's service of Thanksgiving last week, that he hopes to see his grandmother very soon. Right. So I don't think all the bridges are burnt.
Good stuff. Well, shall we just... You kind of finished by talking a little bit about the Queen's health, of course, absolutely. So what's the latest on all of that then, Cameron?
Well, on Wednesday, she she officially virtually visited the Royal London Hospital. She's patron, and she was seeing the new Queen Elizabeth unit, which was built in just 5 weeks because of the coronavirus pandemic, because of the big influx of patients. It's one of the biggest critical care units in the country. And there she was speaking to a patient who was suffering badly with coronavirus, or did in the past. And that's where she revealed her own bout of COVID. she felt very tired and exhausted. Usually the palace have tried to be very private with the Queen's health issues, but she publicly declared how she felt. And she is 95, she turns 96 next week. She's missing the Maundy service. Later on this week, Prince Charles is taking her place. So I think we are perhaps going to see more and more of Charles and Camilla doing more engagements. But I think, you know, doing a virtual engagement is her chance to continue to meet British citizens, as she has done for the last 70 years, even if she is suffering a bit with mobility at the moment.
Absolutely, and I thought she looked on fire.
I think she looks on top form, personally. And yeah, it's her birthday next week, isn't it?
21st of April, yes.
Yes, good stuff.
Great stuff.
Thank you very much, Cameron. As always, I look forward to having many more discussions like this with you down the line. Thank you very much. Cameron Walker there, of course, our very own royal correspondent. Right now, let's go through some of those stories that you might have missed, those headlines that may have evaded your attention so far. So where are we? Starting in Scotland?
Yes, an Edinburgh volunteer group has sent more than 110 tonnes of aid to Ukraine to help the people and pets caught up in the conflict. Sunflower Scotland has sent cat and dog crates and pet food for the civilians attempting to rescue their pets, as well as clothes, medicine and sewing tape, which they say can be used to help make ammo vests for civilian volunteers.
Well, Sunflower Scotland, who've raised more than £30,000 for their cause, held their most recent fundraising event on Sunday. It was a bake sale at Starbucks, Fountain Park, Edinburgh. Lovely stuff. But also, I think this is great because I was really amazed. I don't say I got something wrong, but I misjudged, I think, the public mood on something where it would be the Afghan withdrawal and...
what was his name?
Penfarthing.
Penfarthing, that's it.
The animals over people argument. Now, I thought initially at the time people would think, oh, that's just insane, you know, we should be going and get as many people as possible. And I was wrong about that. Well, loads of you guys, anyway, certainly, were really like, no, come on, get the dogs and cats out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, of course, at times like this, when there's a literal war going on and people are dying on the streets, people are being killed, you obviously have to speak about the humans, and it does kind of sit unwell with you to start talking about animals and the safety of animals. But it is the case that there are people's animals there. Millions of people, I'm sure, will have the pet, probably. And there is a big question of what happens to those pets at times like this. And it's good to see, you know, charities dedicated to helping the animals as well.
Absolutely. Well, some other good news now, in a way. Sunday was also Dame Cressida Dick's final day as Met Police Commissioner after 5 years struggling to do the role. Despite criticising the Dame in the past, London Mayor Sadiq Khan thanked the outgoing Commissioner for her service as the Met's first female commissioner. And, I mean, goodness me. She says, through work to bring down violent crime. I mean,
that never happened.
One no-hoper celebrating another no-hoper.
And also, I'm not sure she did much for women either. This is the thing. When somebody says, oh, well, she's... am I supposed to like her just because she's a woman? Well, what has she actually done for women? Not much, clearly. She's probably... her job has been brought down by her forces' incompetence on women's safety, so I couldn't care less whether she's a woman or not.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, there we go. OK.
Well, he added, by the way, Sadiq Khan, searching for her replacement, he would not support the appointment of somebody who doesn't understand or acknowledge the scale of the challenge facing police.
Well, obviously
surely
not.
That would be the literal one criteria.
Obviously not. I mean, what on earth? It's like, well, you know, obviously I am interviewing for this job at my local law firm, and I tell you what, whoever gets the job is really going to have to understand the law. You know, of course. Well, I've got this job going a head chef, actually, at Malmaison, but that person, they're going to have to be able to cook. Yeah, fine. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I think you made your point. Now, Durham University is urging their professors to make their maths curriculum more inclusive. The university suggests considering the cultural origins of taught concepts and questioning whether theories cited were created by mostly white or male mathematicians.
Well, they've found that this is the case. The university says that professors should aim to find contributors to feel from other genders or ethnicities to decolonise and make the syllabus more open.
Yes, I'm sure the pioneers of mathematics really cared about different genders. I'm sure they identified as non-binary all those hundreds of years ago. Just rubbish, isn't it? It's just a load of rubbish. I mean, do you know what? Let me be fair. On one hand, I do get it. I don't think history is taught in a full and open way. And there are histories that people don't know about in fields such as mathematics and science and lots of things like that. But I mean, I'm tired of universities doing all of this. Just focus on the subject at hand, the mathematics. That's what they need to be good at.
Well, what did you do? I studied work maths at Durham. But anyway, right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, bit of a call out this Wednesday, the 13th of April, we need you, OK? We're handing the show over to you. We want you to tell us what to talk about and what you think are some of the most important stories and issues.
Yes, so tell us the subjects that need covering, the questions that need answering, and who you think we should be talking to. And you can email us your stories. New email, not the usual one, tothepoint@gbnews.uk. That's tothepoint@gbnews.uk. That's where you can email us anything you think we should be talking about, and we'll dedicate Wednesday's show to all of that. So keep all your thoughts coming in to us in the meantime on our other email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, and we'll be back with more top stories after this short break.
Hi there, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Cloud for many of us through the rest of the day. Some showery rain as well, particularly towards the west and later the north. And it will be breezy, that breeze coming in around an area of low pressure which is sitting to the west. Now this is the feature that is sending some areas of cloud and outbreaks of showers or rain. These showers have had thunder associated with them as they push in from the west, but I think mostly it's just going to be some heavy bursts of rain that will move into parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, and then eventually parts of central England later. Another area of rain moving through Scotland. A lot of cloud on the map, but some brighter spells, and it'll be a gusty breeze, but that breeze is coming from a mild direction, so 18 Celsius possible in the southeast, mid-teens generally elsewhere. Still quite cold for Lerwick. And then through the night, showers or outbreaks of rain move through northern England into Northern Ireland, Scotland as well. Some persistent wet weather for eastern parts of Scotland with a keen breeze here. And then further showers follow from the south. Again, a few rumbles of thunder possible towards the southwest and Wales. But it's a mild night, 6 Celsius in Glasgow, 10 Celsius for southern England and South Wales. Heavy rain or showers for many as we start off Tuesday. They push north, an area of rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and then further rain arriving into northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland through the day. That wrapped round into parts of southeast England, so some wet weather to come here. Brighter skies for Wales, western England as well, and temperatures reaching the high teens. But even here, there'll be a few scattered showers around and some heavy downpours in places. Into Tuesday evening, showers and rain tend to migrate northeastwards. Some clear spells at times, but for many it's another mild night. And actually, the weather is warming up, although we'll keep a lot of cloud in the sky during Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Temperatures will reach the high teens or even low 20s.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering
as their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Good morning, people. This is To The Point on GBNews with me, Patrick Christys and Mercy Muroki on your TV, radio and online. We're with you all the way through until midday with a massive final hour of this show. Expert guests, loads of your opinion, a few of ours as well.
Yes, and we'd love to hear those opinions, so get them in at GBViews at gbnews.uk. We'll get to as many as we can in this final hour, but first, here's the latest news.
Good morning, it's just 1 minute past 11. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date today. Now, the Austrian Chancellor is going to push for a ceasefire in Ukraine when he meets the Russian president in Moscow later. It's going to be the first time an EU leader has had a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin since the war began. Ukraine is bracing for a new attack in the east, with the president, Volodymyr Zelensky, warning that Russia is readying tens of thousands of troops for the next offensive. New videos emerged showing the extent of the damage at the National Theatre in the city of Mariupol, which had been destroyed during an airstrike, killing at least 300 people. Well, Jamil Jaffer, who served in the White House and associate counsel to the president, warned there'll be many more casualties.
The situation we're seeing on the ground is terrible. Over 10 million people displaced, 6.5 million within Ukraine itself, thousands of civilians dead, continuously being targeted by the Russians, hospitals, schools, and the like being targeted by the Russians. The situation is getting worse by the minute, and Putin has very little incentive to negotiate. While he is focused on the eastern part now, the fact of the matter is that he will try to starve the Ukrainians out.
The Chancellor has referred himself to the Prime Minister's independent advisor on ministers' interests. Well, it's after it emerged that Rishi Sunak held a US green card while in office and that his wife holds non-domicile status. He says he followed the rules and hopes the review will provide further clarity. Well, the Shadow Justice Secretary Steve Reed told GB News the Chancellor's failure to declare his wife's non-dom status is just one of many concerns.
The Finance Act that's just gone through Parliament, there are changes to the rules that benefit wealthy non-doms. Now, under the ministerial code, ministers are supposed to declare that kind of thing so that they can recuse themselves and not take part in decisions that will affect their own household income. There are a whole list of concerns like that about Rishi Sunak's behaviour, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
From today, millions of people in the UK will see a rise in their state pension, but it won't be enough to match the growing cost of living. Pensions and universal credit benefits have increased by 3.1%, but the Office for Budget Responsibility says inflation could hit a 40-year high of 8.7% later this year. Pensions analyst Helen Morrissey told GB News the financial boost is not enough.
With inflation already at 6.2% and looking to go higher over the next few months, it's a drop in the ocean when they're battling against soaring bills and food costs. Heating costs are on the rise as well, and they're going to really struggle to make ends meet, particularly those people who are very, very dependent on the state pension.
Britain's economy almost stalled in February, with growth slowing more than expected. The Office for National Statistics says gross domestic product increased just 0.1% compared to a rise of 0.8% in January. The slowdown comes as the cost of living crisis starts to take hold. A record 21.5 million car journeys are expected over the Easter weekend. The RAC is warning drivers in advance that the getaway between Good Friday and Easter Monday will be the busiest on the UK's roads in at least 8 years. Thousands of passengers will also be travelling by rail and air. The latest figures show Heathrow recorded its busiest month since the pandemic started, with more than 4 million passengers passing through the airport last month. In France now, and Emmanuel Macron is going to face Marine Le Pen in the second round of the French presidential election. The incumbent president and his far-right rival came out on top in Sunday's first-round vote, setting up now a repeat of their 2017 runoff. A number of polls are predicting that Macron will win with a tight margin. All of the major candidates in the election, bar one, have called for tactical voting against Le Pen. Nearly half of England's teachers plan to quit within the next 5 years. A new poll published by the National Education Union found 52% blame an unmanageable workload for wanting to leave the profession. In the survey of 2,000 teachers, pay and accountability were also cited as reasons to consider quitting. The Queen has revealed she was left very tired and exhausted during her bout of coronavirus in February. The monarch made a video call to Royal London Hospital this week, and she sympathised with a former COVID patient who'd lost both his brother and his father to illness. The Queen tested positive in February, and despite suffering what Buckingham Palace called mild cold-like symptoms, she was determined to carry out what duties she could.
I'm glad that you're getting better, and it does leave one very tired and exhausted, doesn't it? This horrible pandemic.
You're up to date here on GB News. I'll bring you more as it happens. Now, let's head back to Patrick and Mercy.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, and Mercy Muroki on your TV, radio and online. We've got a massive show lined up for you, so here's what's coming up.
Yes, the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has written to the Prime Minister asking for an investigation into his financial affairs after days of damaging leaks about his family's tax status, or more specifically, his wife's tax status. This comes, of course, as tax on the rest of us continues to rise. Our political correspondent Tom Harwood will join us with the latest.
Will Rishi stay? Will Rishi go? Who knows? Anyway, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that his country is bracing itself for a hard battle in the east, with Russian forces continuing to amass there. In fact, an 8-mile convoy was pictured going their way just yesterday on satellite images. And of course, there are allegations of Russian brutality and alleged war crimes. So we'll be asking what it will take to bring a war criminal to justice.
Yes, and former British soldiers who served in Northern Ireland during the Troubles are today staging a protest in Trafalgar Square over what they say is the persecution of veterans. We'll be crossing live with our London reporter later on in the show to cover that important story.
Yeah, we've got all of that coming up and much, much more as well across the programme. You can get in touch with us, GBViews at gbnews.uk. But first, Mercy gives her views on gender-neutral passports.
As of today, American citizens can now have a gender-neutral X on their passport instead of male or female, adding for the first time a third category on passports in the country. The US Special Diplomatic Envoy for LGBTQ rights, Jessica Stern, said this of the move, and I quote, "The addition of a third gender marker propels the US forward towards ensuring that our administrative systems account for the diversity of gender identity, gender expression, and sex characteristics amongst US citizens." Well, I think the star-spangled banner of the once great nation that's America has lost its shine. The social and political elites of the left seem to be utterly high on some completely mad ideas. For instance, Biden promised to elect the first black female Supreme Court justice if he was voted in as president. To his credit, that's exactly what he did. And to her credit, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, now the first black female Supreme Court justice in American history, is a very highly qualified, Harvard-educated lawyer. But whether or not electing someone to a position because of their race is a clever idea or not, spoiler alert, it's not, that's another whole debate. What I care about is that during her confirmation hearing, she was asked this question: can you provide a definition of the word woman? Her response: no, I cannot. I'm not a biologist. Supreme Court justices are the people tasked as the final arbiters of law. They're supposed to deal in truth and fact. I'm not a vet, but I know a dog when I see one. But again, the American elites of the left are suffering from delirium on the issue of sex and gender. But back on the passports issue, I was under the impression that a passport is meant to be a factual account of an individual's identity, not an account of how they feel at any particular time, not an account of who they want to present as, but a truthful, verifiable legal account of an individual's factual characteristics. Now, I don't object to individuals who've legally changed from male to female or vice versa, changing their sex on their passport. If they've legally changed their gender, fine. But allowing individuals to put their sex as X, really? Not identifying as male or female, feeling that you're gender neutral does not absolve you from being factually or legally male or female. Luckily for us here in Britain, our own Supreme Court has got it right on this issue so far. In a court case last December, they said that not allowing people to put an X did not breach human rights. This was after a gender-neutral campaigner took the case to court, arguing it was against their human rights not to be able to identify as having no gender on their passport. The Supreme Court, of course, dismissed the case unanimously. Lord Reid, President of the Supreme Court, said this, and I quote, "There is no legislation in the United Kingdom which recognises a non-gendered category of individuals." He added that the government was legitimate in maintaining a coherent approach to issues of gender across law and administration. Look, it's my belief that people out there do genuinely feel like they are born in the wrong body. People feel like they don't fit neatly into the categories of male and female. I do believe that, and I feel for them. I think they should be treated with the same respect and dignity as everybody else. But I won't be forced to accept that we should, as a society, ignore facts and truth for the sake of feelings.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legal document. It's a factual document.
You can't not be a sex. Because the passport is... I know gender and sex are used interchangeably when it comes to what's on your passport, but it is your sex. It's not how you feel. And look, as I said, to caveat this, if somebody has gone through transition, has legally changed their gender, so maybe a man has transitioned into a woman and legally gone through all the entire process to be classified as female under the law, then okay, fine, have female on your passport.
Yeah.
Because that's legally coherent. But it's different saying I'm no gender, I'm no sex, I'm just X. That's not a thing. No. And it shouldn't be a thing, actually, no, I don't think. Not on a legal document.
No, I'm inclined to agree with you, but now some of the images, obviously, just moving away from that, now some of the images coming out of Ukraine have been absolutely horrendous. Mass graves were uncovered in the city of Bucha, and more evidence of alleged Russian atrocities has emerged from territory reclaimed by Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian authorities have declared that they intend to gather evidence to take Russia to the International Criminal Court.
Yes, but how in practice does this happen? And are Russians in the slightest bit deterred by the possibility of war crimes investigations? Well, joining us now to discuss this further is Alexander Pavlichenko, who's the Executive Director of the Ukrainian Helsinki Group for Human Rights. Thank you for joining us this morning. I do really just want to get to grips with what exactly it entails when somebody, a state or individuals, are sort of sued, I suppose is not the right word, but brought to The Hague and accused of alleged war crimes. What is the process that one goes through to have that happen?
Well, thank you for raising this very important issue about the prosecution for the war crimes and possibility to bring the person concerned to the justice. And it's not an easy and fast way, first of all. And for the time being, very important to collect all the facts and it's a very sad story, but we have a pile of the facts, and every day we discover the new tragic facts of the war crimes. And for example, today we received the video from not Bucha, but from the other side of the Kiev, on the north side of Kiev, small village Bogdanivka, with the dozen of killed and murdered persons. So it's enormous and cruel crimes occurred during this war, and done by Russian military forces. Well, you just show the theater in Mariupol, the new tragic page in the war of the Ukraine with Russia, and we see and we expect that we will have the new evidences. What to do? First of all, we have to bring and expose to the light these crimes, and to overcome the Russia's lie that doesn't recognize its responsibility for these crimes. And the international justice is not the easy way, as I said before, but it should work. And we now in contact with the prosecutor of the ICC, of the International Criminal Court, with his team, and the national law enforcement structures like Office of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, National Police, they work together with civil society organizations, and they try to bring together all the evidences to have the solid and well-founded database with the all facts and proofs on rapes, killings, massacres, tortures, detentions, and so on. And just address to the international society to bring more light and to discover these particular stories and whole pictures of the war, of the tragedy of the war, that no one perpetrator stayed without the punishment.
No, indeed. All right, well, look, thank you so much for joining us and just kind of filling us in, really, on exactly how they can be prosecuted for war crimes, exactly why they might have been as well. And we really do appreciate your time for us this morning. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Pavlyuchenko there. Right, OK, well, look, I think maybe we'll just do a couple of quick little views, GB Views at gbnews.uk. Thank you to everyone who has been getting in touch. And they've been flooding in thick and fast. Mercy's got to admit then, an X is interesting. This is about your monologue there about whether or not it should be gender-neutral passports.
Yeah.
People said that, yeah, basically they're in agreement with you. It should just be a Mr. or Mrs. or a Ms. or whatever, you know?
Well, somebody here who does not want to be named for some reason says maybe they identify as nameless. That's going to be a thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What happens if a gender X has to be subject to a pat-down or full strip search? Do the authorities have to find a gender-neutral person to carry this out? Does this not leave authorities to being open to being fined millions? Which is actually an interesting point, because the wider point there is there's so many logistical issues and so many practical issues that have to be thought about.
Yeah.
You know, people think that they pat themselves on the back, these lefty liberal types, elites. They pat themselves on the back when they do things like this, but that actually raises so many questions. And this is one trivial example, but there's so many to be answered.
And just on our story that we covered earlier about Durham University wanting to decolonise maths, that's correct. As an alumni from Val, thank you very much. I don't know what that was, but there we go. From Val, who's saying, as a Durham alumni, I've just heard the latest woke insanity from Durham University. Decolonise maths? What on earth has happened to that once illustrious institution? There we go. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Yes, well, we'll be back after a short break and we'll be discussing the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, who has written to the Prime Minister asking for an investigation into his financial affairs after days of leaks about his wife's tax affairs. Well, our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, will join us in the studio, and Patrick will turn off the volume on his laptop.
Sorry, I said something and it activated Siri, right? That's the last one.
Join us in a bit.
Hi there, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Cloud for many of us through the rest of the day. Some showery rain as well, particularly towards the west and later the north. And it will be breezy, that breeze coming in around an area of low pressure which is sitting to the west. Now this is the feature that is sending some areas of cloud and outbreaks of showers or rain. These showers have had thunder associated with them as they push in from the west, but I think mostly it's just going to be some heavy bursts of rain that will move into parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, and then eventually parts of central England later. Another area of rain moving through Scotland. A lot of cloud on the map, but some brighter spells, and it'll be a gusty breeze, but that breeze is coming from a mild direction, so 18 Celsius possible in the southeast, mid-teens generally elsewhere. Still quite cold for Lerwick. And then through the night, showers or outbreaks of rain move through northern England into Northern Ireland, Scotland as well. Some persistent wet weather for eastern parts of Scotland with a keen breeze here. And then further showers follow from the south. Again, a few rumbles of thunder possible towards the southwest and Wales. But it's a mild night, 6 Celsius in Glasgow, 10 Celsius for southern England and South Wales. Heavy rain or showers for many as we start off Tuesday. They push north, an area of rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and then further rain arriving into northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland through the day. That wrapped round into parts of southeast England, so some wet weather to come here. Brighter skies for Wales, western England as well, and temperatures reaching the high teens. But even here, there'll be a few scattered showers around and some heavy downpours in places. Into Tuesday evening, showers and rain tend to migrate northeastwards. Some clear spells at times, but for many it's another mild night. And actually, the weather is warming up, although we'll keep a lot of cloud in the sky during Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Temperatures will reach the high teens or even low 20s.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering.
As their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Good morning, it's just gone 11:24 and you're watching To The Point with me, Mercy Muroki and Patrick Christys, or you're listening to us on GB News here. We're live on your TV, online and radio.
Right, well, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak has written to the Prime Minister requesting an investigation into his financial affairs. You love it when they refer themselves, don't you? The request comes in the wake of controversy surrounding his wife's non-dom status, which could have saved her up to 20 million quid in taxes at a time when families are struggling with the ongoing cost of living crisis.
Yes, well, on Friday, Sunak's wife, Akshata Murty, made the announcement that she would pay UK taxes on her worldwide income after the backlash. Well, let's talk to our political correspondent now, Tom Harwood. Tom, we've had people emailing in this morning saying, look, if he's not broken the law, what's the problem?
Right, and this is the debate that was really had last week. It's extraordinary this has kicked into another week. Potentially some bad politics there from Rishi, asking for this investigation, asking for this inquiry, which will in all likelihood clear him. But what it also does is drag this story in to another week, and everyone's talking about how stupendously wealthy he and his wife are. And ultimately, that does seem to be the crux of this story. A lot of the commentary around it isn't just whether the rights and the wrongs of non-domiciled status, but just about should someone with that level of wealth, a family worth over £100 million, be in that position. And there are some people who think that Rishi is simply too rich to be in touch with ordinary people.
Hang on a minute, but you know, we always go, don't we? Well, this person's got no experience in the education system. Why would you make them education secretary? This person's got no experience of working in a hospital. Why would you make them health secretary? Well, I want a fabulously wealthy person to be my Chancellor because they've got some experience of wealth creation. Like I've said before, I'll say it again, he wouldn't give it me, we'd have a massive party, we'd be dead in a week, right? Whereas Rishi Sunak actually knows his way around a spreadsheet.
Yeah, isn't that the crux of the problem? It's not so much that he's so wealthy, which we've more or less known for a long time. We know his wife is the daughter of an Indian billionaire, but it's the fact that at this point in time, it's not a good look, all of this, because the country's facing a cost of living crisis. He's just raised taxes. That's the key part, isn't it?
That's absolutely the crucial point here, because some of these stories are not actually new. When it comes to the non-domiciled status story, that came out over a month ago in Private Eye. It only kicked off last week when The Independent ran it, because that was the week in which taxes were rising for ordinary working people. So it really does depend on the context when we're looking into these stories. But ultimately, it is a bit of an embarrassment for Rishi, who has seemed to be a very slick political player, who was someone who was the most popular politician in the country for the best part of 2 years, suddenly sliding down to being not particularly popular at all. And to some extent, it's the way that he's played the issue, as well as the issue itself. Because there is an argument where you can say, well, actually, if someone earns money abroad, that's money that's not being created within the United Kingdom, it's being taxed elsewhere, not here, but on money that is being made in the United Kingdom, it's being taxed here. That's non-domiciled status. You could make an argument for that. There's a reason why we've had non-domiciled status since the 1700s. There's a reason why no government, Labour or Conservative, Whig or Tory has ever got rid of this status. So you could make the argument for it, but the fact that he tried to do that and then U-turned, because of course Rishi Sunak's wife has now given up that non-dom status, will be paying tax going forward on UK tax on foreign income, but also backdating that for the last year, so paying taxes for the last fiscal year as well on income from overseas.
Yeah, I mean, well, if only they could make us, the taxpayers, some tax savings like they're doing for themselves. But very quickly, this has all prompted Sajid Javid to make his own, some might say, confession. Can you just fill us in on that?
Sajid Javid has, of course, had a similar background to Rishi Sunak, where, of course, he was in the financial sector as well. Sajid Javid having worked at one of the largest banks in the world. And similarly, Rishi Sunak, of course, has done that. There are a lot of stories around the time of the leadership election of Sajid Javid's role in terms of how he was acting during the financial crisis, but also, of course, individual tax affairs as well. Sometimes these bubble up as stories and sometimes they're skirted over.
But the big question for me is who's leaking this stuff, Tom?
Well, that's the question that has been demanded an inquiry of. Rishi Sunak, of course, asking for that to come out. I mean, some people saying...
You must know who's leaking it, Tom.
Some people say people around Boris Johnson. I don't believe that. I don't think that it helps the government for people to be attacking between number 10 and number 11. Of course, to some extent, this may well have been pushed by the Labour Party. They've been doing a lot of a Get Rishi operation last week, sending out letters and such to the parliamentary press lobby. But equally, there are only a certain number of people who would have been privy to this information, whether it's people within the civil service or people close to the Sunaks on a personal level. Some big questions.
Good stuff, Tom. Thank you very, very much. I wonder whether or not it could be yet another Dominic Cummings intervention, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, the state pension will rise today by 3.1%, but with soaring inflation and high energy bills, there are concerns that it will do little to help those currently struggling in the face of the cost of living crisis.
Yes, well, our Wales reporter Lily Hewitson has been talking to pensioners this morning. Let's take a look at what they've been saying.
So good morning. We're at this fantastic bistro in Pontypool, which is run by Age Connect Torfaen. Now, it's a charity that supports older people in the local area, and we're here to talk about the state pension and how it's changing a little bit today. It's going to increase by 3.1%, but actually, is that going to make any difference to people in their everyday lives when we're living in this cost of living crisis? So let's have a chat to a couple of people who are going to be affected by this change. Now, firstly, Sue. you have got a pension, but is it going to make much of a difference to you, having this little bit of extra money every week when we are dealing with this cost of living crisis where everything seems to be a little bit more expensive at the moment?
Basically, no. I mean, the pension's going up maybe £4 a week if you're lucky. At the moment, my gas and electric has gone up £95, you know, and that's not going to help me at all. You know, I mean, they give it with one hand and they take it back with another. So there's very little hope of me making any profit type of thing from it. I'd be lucky if I managed to pay all the bills.
It's a rather scary situation, isn't it? Ron, how are you feeling about the pension? Are you going to see a bit of a difference? Is it going to be going up at all every week for you? And with this cost of living crisis, are you going to see much of a difference?
I'm very fortunate, really, because I'm comfortable with the income that I received, because I got an occupational pension and my state pension, and I got more income now than when I was working.
Well, that sounds like a great situation to be in. So you're happy with the little bit of the... I think there's a couple of people disagreeing here, but you're going full steam ahead with this.
But I did my financial planning from a very early age, and that's worked out very well for me.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that this morning, Ron. Jane, I think, looking at your face, you might have a different opinion, perhaps, on what Ron's just said. 3.1%, is it going to make any difference to you at all?
No, not really, because the cost of living is going up. And people are talking about heating or eating. You know, that's the tagline. And I feel very strongly about that. As you get older, you need a warm house, you need good nutritional food, and it's not going to cover the cost because our bills are just going to go up, and it's not going to happen.
Are your friends in particular worried about this? I'm sure, like your friendship circle, they'll be, you know, perhaps benefiting differently from the 3.1% going up. But what is the general consensus with them? Is everyone kind of feeling the same way?
They're all feeling a bit grumpy. Yes, they feel it's not enough to meet the rising costs. And unfortunately, this all ties in with the global economy. We know what's going on in the world. Very worrying. But, you know, we're living here in the lovely borough of Torvine, and we're just all doing our best. But the old folks need looking after.
Right, there's definitely some different opinions here this morning when it comes to the state pension. I think it's very much an individual situation, isn't it? But I think we're going to tuck into some hot cross buns and have some more tea and coffee. But for now, back to you.
Yes, Lily, thank you very much. Lily Hewitt's now, of course, our Welsh correspondent. Now, the Queen has revealed that she was left feeling very tired and exhausted after her battle with COVID, bless her, in February. We'll be talking to a royal expert on that after the break. And we've got a lot more coming your way as well, including, do you think it's right that 16-year-olds may be considered for Scottish Parliament?
No,
Surely that's far too
absolutely
young.
not.
Surely it's far too young. Stay tuned.
Good morning, it is 11:33. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date. The Austrian Chancellor will push for a ceasefire in Ukraine when he meets the Russian president in Moscow later. It's going to be the first time an EU leader has had a face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin since the war began. Ukraine is bracing for a new attack in the east, with President Zelensky warning Russia is readying tens of thousands of troops for the next offensive. New videos also emerged showing the extent of the damage at the National Theatre in Mariupol, which was destroyed during an airstrike, killing at least 300 people. The Chancellor has referred himself to the Prime Minister's independent advisor on ministers' interests. It's after it emerged that Rishi Sunak held a US green card while in office and that his wife holds non-domicile status. He says he followed the rules and hopes the review will provide further clarity. Millions of people in the UK are going to see a rise in their state pensions, but it's not going to be enough to match the growing cost of living. Pensions and universal credit benefits have increased by 3.1%, but the Office for Budget Responsibility says inflation could hit a 40-year high of 8.7% later this year. A record number of car journeys is expected this weekend, with the RAC anticipating 21.5 million trips over the Easter break. Thousands of passengers will also be travelling by rail and air. The latest figures show Heathrow recorded its busiest month since the pandemic started, with more than 4 million passengers passing through the airport last month. The Queen has revealed she was left very tired and exhausted during her bout of coronavirus in February. The monarch made a video call to Royal London Hospital this week, sympathising with a former COVID patient who lost his brother and father to illness. You're now up to date on GB News. We're on your TV, online and DAB+ radio. Don't go anywhere. Patrick and Mercy will be back in a moment.
Europe is in the grip of the most devastating humanitarian crisis since World War II.
The people of Ukraine are facing unimaginable suffering.
As their homes are destroyed and their loved ones are killed.
Millions of people are being forced to flee for their lives, carrying only their children, their pets, and the clothes on their back.
The pain, loss and destruction grows by the day.
The people of Ukraine urgently need our help.
Already a vast humanitarian operation is underway. Britain's Disasters Emergency Committee, or DEC, brings together 15 leading aid charities to respond to overseas disasters quickly and efficiently. These charities include the British Red Cross, CARE, Oxfam, Save the Children and World Vision.
Their teams are working on the ground in Ukraine and neighbouring countries to bring vital aid to those who need it most. If you can spare it, your gift to the DEC's humanitarian appeal will go a really long way.
£10 provides essential hygiene supplies for a person for a month.
£50 provides blankets for 4 families.
£100 provides emergency food for 2 families per month.
It's easy to give. You can donate online at dec.org.uk or call the 24-hour donation line on 0370 60 60 900. If you prefer to send a cheque, please post it to the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, PO Box 999, London, EC 3A 3AA. To give £10 on your mobile, simply text the word crisis to 70150. Standard network charges apply for calls and you must be 16 or over. Texts are charged at the standard network rate and your £10 donation will be added to your bill.
100% of your donation goes directly to the DEC to save lives and deliver critical support where it's needed.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's 11:37. In fact, it is about to go 11:38. I'm Patrick Christys. I'm joined by Mercy Muroki, as ever, on GB News. We're live on your TV, online and radio this morning.
Yes, now former British soldiers who served in Northern Ireland during the Troubles are today staging a protest in Trafalgar Square over what they say is the persecution of veterans. Soldiers who were previously investigated and then cleared of any historic crimes are still being repeatedly taken to court with no new evidence, costing British taxpayers hundreds of millions of pounds in the process.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking stuff, this. Well, our London reporter, Alice Porter, is now at the protest for us in Trafalgar Square, live for us on the scene. Thank you very much. What's happening today, then, and why, please?
Hi there, good morning. Well, it's important that we think back on the background to this. And if we look back to the Troubles, around 60% of the violence was caused by Republicans. But because of the Good Friday Agreement, many Republicans were given letters of comfort or Queen's pardons of mercies, which was effectively an amnesty by Tony Blair. But those who are in the armed forces or those who are in the police were not given such amnesty. And they say they've been repeatedly taken to court with no new evidence, all of which have led to no convictions whatsoever, and they're saying that enough is enough. And I'm joined here today by Paul Young, who's from the Northern Ireland Veterans Movement. Thank you very much for joining me. Just talk me through a little bit about why you're here and why you're protesting.
Yes, thank you, Alice. We've been protesting since 2015. We've had thousands of people out onto the streets for the simple reason that terrorists under the Good Friday Agreement have been given immunity from prosecution with the use of letters of comfort, royal pardons for all the senior terrorists in the IRA, and been let out of prison early with those that are serving many life sentences for the most heinous murders. They have been the most abusive human rights abuses in the history of Great Britain. And because of that, John Reid signed a letter back when Tony Blair was in government, and that excluded any protection, specifically excluded any protection for our forces, and that's the police as well as the army.
Okay, so just tell me, what exactly are you wanting the government to do? You're here in Trafalgar Square. I know you're going to be moving on. What exactly do you want the government to be doing today?
Yes, Alice, we want the government, and in particular Brandon Lewis, to enact the command paper that he, to great fanfare in August last year, released to the world. And that is something that we want him to do. What that does is gives the protection for the HM forces that are now going through the courts, and it will stop them dead in its tracks, because what that does, it draws a line under all Troubles-related incidents in Northern Ireland, something that the people of Northern Ireland deserve.
And can you just clarify, this command paper that the government have put together, is that an amnesty for veterans or something different?
No, it's not an amnesty. We don't believe in amnesties. The simple fact is, our soldiers and policemen need the protection they should have got many years ago. Understand this, all those cases that are now being brought back before the courts have all been examined by the legal people of the day, judges, the DPP, and all found to have no case to answer. They did not meet the threshold for a prosecution. So, you know, there's no new evidence. They will never, ever be found guilty in a court. It's just a vindictive rewrite of history by Republicans.
And what kind of impact is this having on veterans? I mean, and I sort of look around, there's many people here clearly into their 60s. If this has been going on for such a long period of time, having people being retrialed and retrialed with no new evidence and no one being convicted, what kind of emotional impact is that having on people?
Well, it's huge. Dennis Hutchins, most people will know the name Dennis Hutchins. Dennis Hutchins was a lovely man. He was in his 80s. He was dragged back from his home in Plymouth. 14 officers went to arrest him. Can you imagine that? 14 officers to arrest a 75-year-old man and drag him back to Northern Ireland to face charges, of which he'd been investigated 3 or 4 times before by eminent people and found to have no case to answer. And Dennis died in a Belfast hospital on his own, lonely, and without his family around him. It's a most appalling breach of justice as far as I'm concerned. It's an appalling. So yes, it's affecting our elderly veterans. I'm 71. I shouldn't be doing this at my age. You know, neither should all these other chaps around here. And anybody that's taken part in this, it's an appalling abusive process.
Well, Paul Young, thank you very much for speaking to me. We're going to be starting here in Trafalgar Square on this protest, and it's going to be moving on. But I think you get a sense there of the frustration and I think desperation that many of the veterans here who have served for Queen and country but feel they're being persecuted by consistently and repeatedly being taken to court with no new charges and no new convictions.
Absolutely. Alice, thank you very, very much. Alice Porter, our London reporter, bringing us that report from Trafalgar Square, and it's an issue that's very close to well, our heart, really, I suppose, in the show. Mine, certainly, I did a couple of pieces on Dennis Hutchins. I find it absolute madness that you can send someone to fight and potentially die or get wounded in the most appalling conditions and situations for this country, for Queen and country, and then 50, 60 years later, you're dragging it through.
I mean, but we used to have Johnny Mercer as well, who was in government and famously resigned over this issue, and he did feel like the only person who was authentically sort of campaigning for veterans, but his leaving was probably a damning indictment of the government's attitude to all of it.
Well, from one controversy to another controversy, Nicola Sturgeon is opening the door to Scotland having the youngest parliamentarians in the world as her party plans to lower the age at which an individual may stand for election from 18 to 16.
Cynical about this, I am. Of course. Whilst the voting age has already been lowered in Scotland to 16, of course, famously, 16-year-olds were allowed to vote in that referendum, that independence referendum. Well, currently, only adults can stand for election to Holyrood. The SNP's Myra Black, who was elected at 20 years old, backs the new idea. not surprisingly. She says this: our politics is always improved by having a diverse group of people in office. Young people are constantly left out of the conversation, and one way to ensure that stops happening is to have young people actually sitting at the table.
Right, yes, OK, all right. But it's normally, I mean, they would have them so young there, they'd be sat at the table wearing a bib, wouldn't they? But is this move likely to score Nicola some more votes amongst the youth in Scotland? Well, joining us now is Morgan Carter, Vice Chair of the Edinburgh University Conservatives. Thank you very much. Welcome to the programme.
And fantastic beard as well.
Owner of amazing beard and chest ruck, so congratulations. But anyway, we digress. Yeah, you're certainly over 16, that's for sure. But, yeah, look, I mean, I find this absolutely fascinating. On the one hand, we have the likes of, you know, some people maybe on the left telling us that Shamima Begum was far too young to know what she was doing. She couldn't possibly be in control or possession of all of her own faculties. Well, she was nearly 16, but you know what? Slap a 16-year-old in Parliament. Where do we get off here?
Well, I mean, the problem with MPs for a number of years, lots of people have said, including people on the left, probably people in the SNP, has been that MPs don't have enough life experience or enough experience out of very narrow spheres of life. And yet now they want to reduce the age that you can be an MP to 16. And all you've got at that point in your life is experience of secondary school. And that's just simply not enough of a qualification.
When my sister, I hope she won't mind me saying this, but when my sister was 16, she had already had a baby, and arguably she had more life experience than most adults in their 30s and 40s when she was 16. Look, 16 is the age of consent, and you can start a family. You know, you can do all sorts of things. So isn't there at least some case to be made that some 16-year-olds might probably have the adequate life experience to represent their community?
Well, there probably are some 16-year-olds who are enough rational actors and have enough experience to do that kind of thing, but you have to draw the line somewhere. As with the age of consent, you draw the line at a certain age where you can trust most people to be ready to make that decision at a certain age. But not everybody would be ready at the age of 16 to stand for Parliament. At all. Some people might, but you have to draw the line somewhere. And we've drawn it at 18. And I don't know if you remember what you were like when you were 16, but I remember what I was like. And I certainly couldn't have represented the country. I probably thought that I could, but I certainly couldn't have done.
No, exactly. And actually, I don't think it's fair on the 16-year-olds as well, because all of a sudden, when they're thrust into the public spotlight, every single element of their life will become scrutinised and it will become public knowledge, and they may well end up saying something at the age of 16 very publicly that they come to change their minds on as, frankly, they turn into an adult. And they may, you know, make the kind of mistakes that a lot of 16-year-olds would make. And you know, an MP, can you imagine the idea of an MSP being found drunk in the park with his mates at 16? You know, that kind of stuff, right? And that could actually have massive consequences for the rest of that individual's life. The SNP claim to care about mental health and child mental health. Couldn't this policy actually damage that? Oh, there you go. Well, you know, we often said that they could do, I suppose. But anyway, well, I'm sure we'll have that chat back. But no, I think it's absolutely shocking. This and is it not, Mercy, just a shameless attempt to rig the deck and get...
Absolutely. Yeah. This is the same tactic that the Democrats use. So the Democrats want illegal migrants who cross over the border to have the vote because they know that illegal migrants crossing will vote Democrat more likely than not because they're more open to migration and take a probably less harsh stance. It's blatant, you know, trying to get votes, isn't it? It's politicking. It's that's all it is. But I do think there is an inconsistency because if you're telling somebody at the age of 16 you can have a child, which is legal, which is what the age of consent essentially means, we're trusting that you have the capacity to get pregnant, a sort of thing. Then why not other things? I think there's a bit of an inconsistency when 18 is an adult, but you can have a child at 16, so you can be a child with a child, but I mean, it's all a bit incoherent for me.
I agree with you, it is incoherent, but like I said before, you know, I think it is just a very, very, very shameful attempt or shameless attempt, I should say, to rig that deck, as you've just said there. You know, it would be like turkeys voting for Christmas, wouldn't it, for illegal immigrants who've now been given the vote to go and vote Republican to an extent anyway. So they're kind of doing a similar thing. Unbelievable that 16-year-olds can't work full-time due to the law with working hours, restrictions, etc. And now the moronic Scottish leadership wants to have them as an MP. It's total madness. And that's from Stephen Kettering.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I completely disagree with 16-year-olds, one, being given the vote, let alone standing for Parliament. So just want to make that clear. I'm completely against it. And there's no way I'm taking advice from a 16-year-old. Thank you very much. Imagine going to see your MP and they're a 16-year-old. No thanks.
No, exactly. They've got a can of Monster on the desk, you know what I mean? They've got a packet of Pringles or whatever over there. They've got some drum and bass on. Sorry, we'll just turn it off. Yes, right, let's have our constituency meeting. Well, we're going to go back now to Morgan Carter, man of extravagant beard. Morgan, thank you very much for coming back onto us. Look, sorry, obviously I was saying before that actually, you know, it might be quite mentally damaging to these 16-year-olds to enter Parliament at that age. What do you think?
100%. I mean, when you're 16, you need to be able to make the mistakes that you need to make at that age to go out and experience life. And you're not quite ready to be thrust into the public eye. I think this is generally quite a cynical move to throw a bow into a demographic amongst whom the SNP poll well. And I think that should be quite obvious to all of us, and they should be ashamed of doing it.
No, and that's it, isn't it? We just spoke before while we were getting you back on there. Is this not an attempt by the SNP to rig the deck a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely. Why did they extend the vote to 16-year-olds in the 2014 referendum? Was it because they really believed deep in their hearts, in a principled way, that people at that age should participate, or was it because it would allow them to achieve what they wanted more easily? So 100%, I think they're trying to rig the deck.
Yeah, we've got just received an email from Graham here. Can't drive until 17, says it all. Going to Parliament with school bus pass, which is kind of funny because that is the point. You're considered, you know, a child pretty much in so many senses. Well, literally a child until you're 18. So how are the Scottish National Party justifying this to themselves? Is it just because they've already opened the floodgates, as it were, because of allowing 16-year-olds to vote in the elections?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think you're seeing the chickens come home to roost after having allowed 16-year-olds to vote in, 2014-15. Because inevitably, if you're enough of a rational actor to participate in an election by voting, why can't you stand for that election? So I think, you know, they really shouldn't be doing this. And how they justify it to themselves is that, you know, Vari Black there said that they want more diverse people in office, and, you know, diversity for diversity's sake isn't a good thing in this example. So the people are lacking life experience.
Yeah, no, exactly that. The SNP is doing, for want of a better phrase, some very strange things with children up there up north, and I'm actually quite confused about it because, you know, you look at what they're doing in terms of changing genders in schools and on the register and all of this stuff, and then now this. It just seems that I can't help but feel as though they've kind of got their tentacles in there and they're thinking, right, how can we now manipulate these young minds to create a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations of guaranteed SNP voters? And something a little bit weird about that. Morgan, thank you very much, Morgan Carter. You'll have to come back on, by the way. Vice Chair of the Edinburgh University Conservatives. It will be great to keep talking to you about Scottish issues, actually, because they're not going away anytime soon. Thank you for your time. Now, loads of emails filling in on this. Just a quick one here. I would like to ask the First Minister about my spots. That's from Terence. Thank you very much.
David thinks, if anything, the voting age should be raised to 40. That's when he thinks we're mature enough.
Well, there you go.
There seems to be... Some people think that being 16, the age of consent doesn't mean you can start... It's the age of what you can have a baby. That is literally what... That is the state saying, at 16 years old, we trust you to get pregnant, to have that responsibility. That is effectively what it means.
I suppose.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
So in my view, if the government says at 16 you can do that, then it's the government saying that means you can also have a child.
Yeah, well, I suppose it is.
And have a family.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Right, we're just going to whiz you through quickly towards the end of the show now some of the headlines that you may have missed. So here in the UK, a survey found that the number of graduate jobs outnumbered the actual number of graduates by 1 million in 2020.
Well, Universities UK found 15 million students graduated at the end of 2020 and are now employed. The report aims to prove wrong misconceptions about the graduate job market, such as undergraduate degrees being of poor value or many being unable to secure skilled jobs. But there's still, I mean, I don't think that says anything about the quality of degrees. It means they're in a job, but doesn't necessarily mean they're in a particularly good job or that they haven't wasted 3 years studying some bonus
to get into crippling lifetime debt that they're never going to pay back. But anyway, there we go. Right, we're finishing with something a lot lighter now, I believe. Monkeys are to blame for our love of drinking. That's right. The drunken monkey theory is based on modern apes that seek overripe fermented fruit for their alcohol content.
Yes, I finally have an excuse.
Absolutely, yes.
I tell my family every time they tell me to not drink so much wine. Well, American researchers believe that the smell of alcohol led primates to ripe fruit millions of years ago. And for those who are not watching us or listening to us on the radio, we are currently showing a very cute picture of a baby monkey in an incubator, and it's probably the cutest thing I've ever seen. And it's surrounded by little snuggly toys as well. While the researchers collected the monkey's urine and found it contained secondary metabolites of alcohol, showing that the animals were using the ethanol in the fruit for energy.
So there we go. That's it. We have cracked the code now. Clearly, I am, well, you know, related to my primate ancestors, and that's why I, well...
drink so much.
Je suis pub. Anyway, right, now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. It's been great to have you on the show today. Thank you, everyone who's been emailing in. We'll be back tomorrow, won't we, from 10 a.m. yet again. And we'll see you then.
Yes, and we want you to email in what we should be speaking about on Wednesday. The email is tothepoint@gbnews.uk. We want to dedicate the show to speaking about the issues you care about, the issues you want to hear us speaking about, and who you want us to speak to as well. So send those suggestions in and tothepoint@gbnews.uk. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Hi there, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Cloud for many of us through the rest of the day. Some showery rain as well, particularly towards the west and later the north. And it will be breezy, that breeze coming in around an area of low pressure which is sitting to the west. Now this is the feature that is sending some areas of cloud and outbreaks of showers or rain. These showers have had thunder associated with them as they push in from the west, but I think mostly it's just going to be some heavy bursts of rain that will move into parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, and then eventually parts of central England later. Another area of rain moving through Scotland. A lot of cloud on the map, but some brighter spells, and it'll be a gusty breeze, but that breeze is coming from a mild direction, so 18 Celsius possible in the southeast, mid-teens generally elsewhere. Still quite cold for Lerwick. And then through the night, showers or outbreaks of rain move through northern England into Northern Ireland, Scotland as well. Some persistent wet weather for eastern parts of Scotland with a keen breeze here. And then further showers follow from the south. Again, a few rumbles of thunder possible towards the southwest and Wales. But it's a mild night, 6 Celsius in Glasgow, 10 Celsius for southern England and South Wales. Heavy rain or showers for many as we start off Tuesday. They push north, an area of rain clearing from the Northern Isles, and then further rain arriving into Northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland through the day. That wrapped round into parts of southeast England, so some wet weather to come here. Brighter skies for Wales, western England as well, and temperatures reaching the high teens. But even here, there'll be a few scattered showers around and some heavy downpours in places. Into Tuesday evening, showers and rain tend to migrate northeastwards, some clear spells at times, but for many it's another mild night. And actually, the weather is warming up, although we'll keep a lot of cloud in the sky during Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Temperatures will reach the high teens or even low 20s.
Tonight on GB News, at 6 it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.